Morning, everyone. Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer, please. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day in Union County. Ask you to look over this board and give us the ability to take care of the people in Union County and surrounding areas to the best of our ability. We ask you to watch over our first responders, get them home safely. We also ask you, God, to be with the people in Israel and what's going on there. Hopefully it comes to an end soon. These things we ask in Jesus' name, amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Harville?
Here.
Commissioner Fix?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Bierstadt? And Commissioner Gould?
Having a quorum, I'll call the meeting to order. First item, approval of minutes from before. I guess we don't have any, correct?
Not that I know of, not. No.
Okay. Table that to the next meeting. Next item, public comments. Anyone?
Me?
That'd be you.
Okay, I'm Tracy with the Union County Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development, and we're here today to ask, we've heard that Southernmost Tourism doesn't have to fill out an application for a grant each year from the Food Board. We would like to see what it would take for us to be afforded that same privilege, that we wouldn't have to keep reapplying for a grant each year. We do spend all of our money in Union County and try to keep everybody active and growing. So we'd like to see what we could do to have that same privilege.
Obviously, I mean, we'll take that into consideration. I will tell you that we're looking at changing some things as far as the food board is concerned, and exactly, I mean, kind of revamping it, just to put it bluntly. It started out serving a good purpose, and it's kind of got sideways, so to speak. But we will take that into consideration. We haven't totally discussed that yet at length and looking at some options and so forth, but we'll definitely look at that and so forth.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, we're happy to answer any of those, down the road when you. Okay.
Right.
I have a question. The money that you guys got last year, have you spent all that money so far?
We've actually spent, the last piece of it is our gatefold, and that shows all of the chamber members in Union County. Joni, you may be better to speak on the gatefold.
It's something the chamber asked for a piece of literature, a foldable paper. It's one of the few things that they're doing on paper with the funds. That is a open out itinerary of all the attractions, not specifically businesses, but lodging, places of interest, parks, food and dining, and tourism related pieces that they can print in small batch. So it makes it more economical and actually more meaningful to the chamber, so that they can make edits as needed in a small batch print, as opposed to ordering thousands of pieces at not necessarily a better price point, where they can't make changes, since there's always, businesses maybe coming and going, hopefully more coming and going. And so that there's opportunity to change it seasonally and just keep it more fresh. So That's in their hands right now for their final edit review, and I believe that's the last part of their piece that I'm the vendor of that fits into their grant request.
Okay, are you waiting for that to be done and then like submit the receipts and everything from that after, for everything
And
afterwards?
we do have those.
Okay. The only other thing that I have a question is more, I know what your request is. I know, like Max said, they're looking at changing some of the stuff for it. We are close to the end of our fiscal year. So my question is, do you plan to apply this year?
Yes.
Okay.
We
Can you
wanted to
get it
have-
in soon so I know the amount to put in?
Okay. We wanted to come and do this first, and then.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm budget mind right now, so
Right,
I
sure,
just need to
sure.
know how much to put in there that's gonna be requested before the end of our fiscal year, so that's it.
Do you know how much is left?
Do you remember, Commissioner Harville? I handed that report to you a couple meetings ago. I don't know if you remember. How much is left?
39,
Was it that much?
I was thinking, I don't know why that sticks in my mind.
That could be. I'm not sure, but I can look that up though and send it to
Okay,
you.
That'd be great. That'd help us know what.
The only thing we need, because our year ends November 30th, and we've got to get, we're working on a budget with all these people, that's what they're here for today.
Right.
We've got to get it posted and so forth, so sooner you could come up with numbers would help.
Do you want it emailed to you? Do you want it to, okay. Got it.
When there's proceeds left like that, does that just go back into the general fund, or where does that $39,000 go? Does it roll over to the next year?
No, all that money stays in the hoop fund. Like the hotel operators has its own, well, the money stays in the fund, but the commissioners decide how much of that money they're gonna allow to be used the next year and how much that money is gonna basically stay in that fund for possible future endeavors. So it always stays there. It doesn't get spent by the general fund at all. It's sitting there. It has a cash balance. Lee can print it at any time what the balance is in that fund. But we don't always allocate 100% to empty the whole fund every year. Does that make sense?
It's not
Okay.
used on anything else.
No.
It has nothing to do with the general fund.
Nope.
So,
I'm gonna say something about the chamber. I served on the board from 87 for 20 years. And it's nice to see it back very active, because when I got off in whatever, 20 years, 07, or whatever that would have been, the chamber at that time was going through a horrible, not to say I was made a difference, but when I got off, it basically fell apart for a while. I don't know who initiated to get it back going to the level it is now. I appreciate, from being a former banker to now, you guys sort of great.
I would like to add one more thing. I didn't really know if I would be adding anything here to value, but I think there's an opportunity to let the board know that in the past 6 months, the digital advertising efforts that the chamber has been doing consistently has delivered 1.78 million impressions throughout our targeted areas. So that's a solid number. That doesn't mean everybody clicks on those or comes to the website, but their website averages between 60 to 70,000 visitors per month. Most of those are not local. And 60% of those visitors are men, and 60% are over the age of 45. So when you, because that's what Google does when you use your
There's some fancy
smartphone.
stuff. Some fancy things these ladies are doing.
No, I would like tell you also that not only is it, we hope, we can't track specifically that visitors are booking rooms, and I know that Heads and Beds is it, but we do know that the more eyeballs you get in a very competitive market, when people have less money to spend to travel, that you have a better chance of getting in front of those people to come to your area and visit the area. Also, looking at surrounding counties, I don't know how many meetings I have been in other communities where people are talking about Union County or being in Union County. Their luncheon a couple weeks ago had somebody from Williamson County saying, I wish I was in Union County, I love being down here. That lady was with hospice. So there's a lot of attention that's being shed here. Maybe not because you're getting all the feedback from the out-of-towners, but I know the buzz from people is that they're noticing something that's happening and they just can't quite put their finger on it. I'm not saying it's all of those efforts, but I believe that that's starting to shine through. And your visitors, not only are the people from outside benefiting that, but the database on the chamber website, which supports all businesses in the county, whether they're a member or not, have a website presence. So places like, I'm not going to throw any names of a business, but there are many that do not have websites. They are now tracking on the reports that show how many visitors they get to the chamber listing. Because if somebody were to go look for XYZ business and they're not found because they don't have all their digital signals set correctly, Union County Chamber of Commerce, their business listing within the chamber is showing up in search results, mainly when it's outside of the area, because that's how search works out, it's based on location. So someone maybe from Mount Vernon that's looking for the business, they have a really slim chance of finding it based on Google's algorithm, but they'll find it through the chamber's listing. So there's a lot of businesses in the data that are now showing up in search and rank very high. The next category of businesses within the chamber's website that rank the highest are the bed and breakfast and the cabin rentals. And so that's really good. Obviously, that's what we want people to find. That is what the marketing efforts are focusing on, are the people traveling to Union County. And while I have the opportunity, and there is revamping for the Hoot Board, one thing I would like to mention in the terms of how marketing and all of these pieces work now, it is slightly not to the benefit that the marketing dollars have to be spent outside of a certain radius. Because we know in certain economic times, we have more people that are willing to travel hyper-locally that are within the 50-mile or 75-mile, whatever that radius is of travel. And it's not quite right to penalize someone's behavior online because they're sitting within the zip code, but they are your people. And good marketers know how to move that money around to different areas based on performance. I totally agree that it doesn't make sense to have billboards and market to your local people. Doesn't make sense. So I understand how those restrictions on geographic areas might have been implemented on pieces of traditional marketing that really aren't used as much anymore in terms of digital marketing, to where if I am here visiting from Chicago and I'm in your zip code and I'm looking for something to do, I'm now excluded from the marketing because I'm in this zip code. Does that make sense? A lot of people are traveling. So anybody traveling through your area that might be looking for cabin rentals when they're sitting in Marion, Illinois, are excluded because they are in that area within the radius that we're not allowed to spend money for advertising. Does that make sense?
Why can't you spend the money for advertising in this area?
Because there's a restriction on the use of the money that says it can't be spent within 50-mile radius.
Never heard of that restriction.
Well, that's
That's
the
important.
board's restriction. It's even in the application.
All right, well, so I guess we need to.
Well, I mean, that's what we're ultimately gonna do, is revamp it, so some of these things are very, antiquated from
Right.
years back when originally we started.
And that hasn't really necessarily affected what the chamber's doing because we're trying to reach people from out of the area. But it definitely, when we have areas in the surrounding area traffic counts, such as Williamson County, that are 150,000 daily traffic counts, and places like that fall within this radius, we're definitely leaving some things on the table in using that money to attract people. So that's all I have to say.
Again, I'm gonna say something, but, back when I served, back in the 80s, there were lots of great ideas that were developed. I mean, Color Fest by Linda Litz, and it nearly died because there was nobody to continue to be that lead person. Then, if you remember, we tried out at the park to have that deer season situation, and there was nobody to keep that moving along. And then there was, Tony Calabrese had that steeplechase, which was a tremendous event, but it died. And so it's nice seeing things, just because it didn't make money the first year, keep pushing the steel, because I'd love to see the steeplechase back. That was a cool idea, and probably nobody in this room remembers that. You know, but, you know, they went just like River to River, but they had stations at each of the churches throughout the county. And, it was just needed more management than what the chamber had to provide to make that fly. And then I don't know why the Deer Festival deal we had out at the park. I don't know if anybody even remembers that, but that died, and we were trying to, and they said I'd all gotten off by that time, but, that was trying to mimic Hope County's deal. And, you know, again, it didn't go real good the first year, so it got dropped. And that's what I hope the chamber continues to try to take these ideas and, you know, give it a chance. I know, Dory, you're working on the ice skating rink, I don't know if it's the chamber of the city, but, you know, that, you know, a great event, but, you know, we just gotta keep moving them along.
Anything else? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You don't want to stay for the budget discussion?
I'd love to. I'd love for you to stay.
Yeah.
Hang out, ladies.
Thank you.
That's right.
And one gentleman.
I said ladies, I said no. He just kind of-
I didn't see that.
Committee reports.
Well, Max, we had our, Center 5 regional planning meeting on the 10th of October. And it seems like they're going to apply for some more IHDA Stronger Community grants, which equates to more local grants for demo projects for abandoned and rundown properties throughout the county. And there's a couple other items. Also down there, they met with Harold Smith and the administrators at the Jonesboro School regarding possible safe routes to school projects on September 5th. And I'm assuming that has to do with the speeding traffic down through there early in the morning and late in the evening. And let's see if I remember right. Also, they're still awaiting the award for the new steps and handrails for the village of Alto Pass. Still waiting on that. I believe that was, I highlighted everything that pertained to us, I think.
Good.
Animal control, we are in desperate need of some donations, kibbles and bits, and monetary. We've had a record-breaking movement in 2023 with animals in and out of that place, and it's not getting any better. So we've kind of exhausted our food supply, our Valentine fund, and everything that goes with that. Appreciate the help. I put that out on the radio last week, hoping to get some donations of some kind. But other than that, it's going pretty good. Like I said, we're just full. And we've had 22, 24 different litters of puppies this year. And getting some big animals in now. Don't want to elaborate on that too much, but yeah, the goat. But other than that, we're doing good. But really do need some dog food and some monetary funds.
Are there any updates on our project out there yet?
Electrical specs.
Still waiting on the architect on some of the specs.
Still waiting on the architect. He's called me the last couple days with random questions about, you know, like who, what's the name on our electric bill and this and that. So I think they're getting close because they're working on the electric design and the plumbing design, and he's asking questions about that. So I assume that they're working on it, but
That's good.
we're still waiting.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, that's progress.
Yes.
I won't elaborate to keep the meeting, it's gonna be long enough anyways, but, you know, 911 is in the budget process for next year. that we've got to get done, which will be probably the end of the first of next month. The best kept secret is Shawnee Development. And again, I promised to get Dina here to talk about it, but the underserved in Union County, the resources that are provided through Shawnee Development are unbelievable. And out of the, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 counties that are in Shawnee Development, probably Union County is one of the few counties that don't take advantage of, the weatherization programs and the energy assistance, water assistance, everything that's out there. So, I'll try to get her in here so that she can at least try to get that word better out for Union County.
Anything else? Thank you, gentlemen. Building permits?
We've got a couple. The first one is parcel number 072405-518D. It's for a new home. There's no subdivision, no floodplain. Recommend it for approval. The second one is parcel 060104-250. It's for a pole barn. There's no subdivision, no floodplain. Recommend it for approval as well.
I'll say this every meeting, thank you for getting back to us in advance.
Yeah, I was over before, yeah. Fine, that's pretty good. You're finding that up.
Any questions on the building permits?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Have nothing under old business, new business, approved payment of bills. Everybody had a chance to look at the bill list. Any questions?
We pay our bills.
Second that.
And Commissioner Harbel,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Next, you have legal bills to approve. These are your third-party ones. You guys are used to it. It's every year about this time. So, the third-party public defender bills, we are hoping by hiring that second public defender that we will continue to see this drop. We're working through the process. I do think it is dropping. The majority of what we're seeing now is juvenile bills, and I don't think you're gonna see those go away. Unfortunately, we have a lot of juvenile cases in Union County. So the total of these bills right now that I need you guys to approve is $5,787.78.
Any questions?
No. I make a motion that we approve the additional bills from the upstairs. I'll second that.
Commissioner Harbel,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Item B, approval of raffle license, VFW Post 3455. I think everybody's got this in front of them. Hope you guys can read it better than I can. I have no clue what it says, other than I know it's the VFW.
Being as CFW, I approve of their request. Make a motion to do it.
Yeah, I'll second that. I can read mine. It's a little bit better than yours, but
I read it last night.
Commissioner Harbel,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Item C, resolution for the anticipation of township bridge funds for section number 20-01212-00BR. You want to elaborate on that?
Well, I wish I could explain it to you, but other than used to, we just sent our request to IDOT and Carbondale, and they sent us the money a couple weeks later. Well, now they've doing it in Springfield, so you never had to do one of these before. but they say I've got to, something to do with the fiscal years, it's over the fiscal year or something. We got $358,000 sitting there that we haven't allocated.
To Union County it's allocated?
Yeah, it's COVID, so, but they say we have to do this form, it's all just, really don't understand, nobody's gonna explain to me, but they say you gotta do it to get the money, so. I just won't do it.
Job security for somebody. in
Yeah, I
Go
really,
through them hoops.
it's just exactly, it, jump through the hoops. It's no, yeah. I wish I could.
So is the money from their fiscal year 20? Is that why you have fiscal year?
The
20?
project is at FY 20. We have to spend it within 4 years. I've already spent on FY 20. So there's,
Okay.
so, but I've got, like I said, 23, 24, I've got $350,000. So, anyway. So we gotta do it, so I guess we'll do it.
I make a motion, we approve the chip bridge funds.
I'll second.
Commissioner Harville?
Yes.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes,
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
hopefully you'll have it in the next year or two.
Yeah. Okay.
Here too.
It's already, yeah, it's already delayed the whole month.
Next item, fiscal year 2023 budget amendment. This is standard procedure. You guys remember, we move money around at the end of the year to take care of everything. Angie, you want to say anything about this?
No, not really. It's just moving stuff between their budgeted lines, like where if they spent more on travel and they spent less on office supplies or whatever. It's just balancing it out so that way when we go through our county audit, we're not over budget on certain line items. I will tell you guys that besides for the courts, which includes these public defender bills that we already know about, everyone else has stayed within their budget for the year, which is exactly what we, want them to do. So it's just been moving between their own departments.
You'll still have probably a few more to do after the fiscal year ends.
Well, we'll have one more. Actually, our auditors make us do it prior, so it's like we have to, right at the very end of our fiscal year, we'll do one more budget amendment if this doesn't, cover it.
Make a motion, we approve the resolution to transfer 2023 budget appropriations.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Harville?
Yes.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Last item that everybody's been anxiously waiting. Glad to see everybody show up. 2024 budget discussion. No. Just so you know.
So Max, the way I have this set up for you guys is the same as we do in the other years. I'm not at a point in the budget, we're doing this a little earlier than what we normally do, by maybe a couple weeks, just to try to get this in there, we get it posted on time, because if you remember, several years ago, we were way behind, and we've got it to where we're on track, so we want to stay on track.
And I'm gonna stop you there. I want to thank you for all the work that you do. I mean, in case any of you don't know it, everybody wanting time off, Angie has spent damn near around the clock on weekends lately. Her husband bringing her breakfast, lunch, and dinner in this private room of hers while she's working on the budget at home on the weekends. So, again,
I concur that because we were emailing back and forth at 12:30, 1 o'clock last night.
but I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I put them in the order with starting with the state's attorney, the court, and the circuit clerk, because I think they have to get out of here for court, so are you guys good with going first? The three of you, okay. All right, so Tyler, I'll need your help on some of these, but I'll talk through some of them. The first request coming in from the state's attorney's office is to make his secretary full-time. Right now, his secretary works, or is budgeted to work 19 hours a week. Just so you guys know, the way our policies are set up is if the employee works 19 hours or under a week, they're not enrolled in IMRF, so we don't have to pay IMRF. If they go over 19 hours a week, you have to enroll them in IMRF. If they go over 27, I think is what, it's 28, but to be careful, we do 27, like when I'm budgeting it. If they go over 28 hours a week, they have to also be given benefits. So what you're gonna see here, which is a little odd, but this is the way it works out for Tyler's secretary, is to make her full-time hours-wise, it's an additional $13,500, $13,478. But it's also an addition, the benefits are more. The benefits with IMRF and health insurance would be $17,358. So that's why it looks like the benefits are more than her salary, because, well, they are. So, so the total request to make his secretary full-time is $30,837 is what it would cost above what she already makes. This is additional money. Do you want to speak on the purpose of making her full-time?
So as far as that request is concerned, Suzanne is our front desk, front line secretary. She does all the call intakes when she's here, the days that she's here. Takes people who walk up to the window, but she's also the primary person who does information intake and file building when we're filing cases. When she's not in the office, those responsibilities have to be shifted down the line to our paralegals and assistants, which requires them to be pulled off of the work that they're doing on files. And you've heard me beat it to death, and anybody in law enforcement related, but we're now dealing with short timelines, increased workload, increased court pleadings and filings that are required under the Safety Act. This is in full effect for that position, as far as what is causing her to have to have on her plate on a regular basis, in excess of what it used to be. It would help with our office operations to have someone at that front desk every day of the week. That way we're not having to pull people off and work that they're already very busy on to fill that hole. It will help with our communication between law enforcement and the clerk as well, as far as file building, filing of new cases and charges, and meeting our very, very demanding timelines for certain criminal cases now that we're having to deal with under the new pretrial fairness rules. So other than that, I can answer any other questions.
So I know I've asked you this, Tyler, but just so the board can hear the answer too, my only concern is when we're moving an employee from part-time to full-time, I shouldn't say only concern, obviously money is a concern, but from full-time or part-time to full-time is, does your current employee want to be full-time? Because I know she's a retired individual, sometimes they don't want to work those extra hours, and I would hate to say it's a full-time position and then now you have to let her go for someone that wants to work full-time.
Right. So I have discussed this with Suzanne personally, and I confirmed again yesterday.
Okay.
And again, she is on board for that, and in part because of the pile that she walks back to sitting on her desk and work she wasn't able to do the day she is not here. It would just help her to do better at her job assignments if she has all extra time.
What days does she work now?
She works Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday right now. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Now, I will tell you guys, like I said, it's 19 hours a week is what she's up to now, and this would take her up to 35 hours a week. So you're talking additional 16 hours. So that's what it is. Did I do that right?
Anybody else have any questions on that particular item?
Okay. So the second item requested from the state's attorney's office is to add another employee for a part-time pretrial liaison. This person, he is requesting this person to work
19 hours a week at $15 an hour. So the total request would be $14,820 for that position.
And I'd like to explain the request. That request was made in part as a secondary consideration regarding the full-time secretary adjustment. Angie laid out the pay increase and IMRF contribution that would apply if we made Suzanne full-time. If this position were to be established, this person would be tasked specifically with addressing all of these things that I've stated earlier about the increase in pretrial, very demanding time constraints, the work that Suzanne is working through. I'm not necessarily requesting with the full effect of everything that I can, that both of those be done. But I did want that in there to highlight that we need additional resources, man hours, and time applied for things that we're doing for this pretrial, these pretrial adjustments that we made that will help us be more efficient, more effective, and be able to get into court in a timely manner, ready to go. So that person specifically for that position would be focused on pretrial matters rather than other file management and relations with people that come through the office and come to the front door.
So if we approve one or the other, which one do you prefer?
I would like to evaluate that and give you an answer that's I consider a little bit more if that's what the consideration is.
Well, I don't know that is what I'm just asking. I mean, I kind of took it from what you were saying that you put this on here in case we didn't do the other.
Correct, yes. And I don't particularly have a preference. I would just say that given my experience, it's hard to find good help. It's hard to hire people. And it will be hard to probably find someone that would take that part-time position at that rate of pay. I think we had a challenge there. We've already got Suzanne in the office. She's well-established and experienced. She already knows the processes. So my preference, I guess, I would rather it be that Suzanne was full-time than
That's what I
creating
was
a
asking.
position. So long answer short.
Any other questions on that position?
Yeah, that position, what kind of an educational background do you have to have for something like that?
For the secretary, the pretrial
The
coordinator,
pretrial?
that can be a secretarial type position. There's no real, it's not a position that requires a certificate or anything like that.
I was just wondering about the $15 an hour and what kind of a education you have to have for that, so.
So the next item on the request for the state's attorney's office is for overtime for his office. I calculated the average of his 3 paralegals, and the average for their hourly rate is $19.75. So then obviously for overtime, I multiply it by 1.5. And then Tyler is asking for 300 hours for the overtime. I put a note in here, Tyler, because I wanted to make sure I told you, because I think your request said you wanted this 300 hours on top of whatever was already budgeted. We don't budget for overtime, so this would be what it would be, because there is no overtime budget in your thing. So the request for the overtime would be $8,888. You know, I always just tell you my opinion. So I do think, obviously, overtime is gonna be a thing for multiple offices. However, I would say it's hard to judge, especially for Tyler's office, because I mean, since you've been here, you lots of times haven't been fully staffed. I mean, we went without Sherry for a while, then we went without Joe for a while, and
The
then,
ASA's position,
and-
maybe for a long.
yes, so he's never really been fully staffed. So to me, I think it's premature
to request overtime because I think he just now has hired his last position and she's gonna start at the end of this month. So he'll finally be fully staffed. That's my opinion. But Tyler, what do you have
I want
to
to
say?
speak to that. We have been fully staffed, not never been fully staffed, but remaining fully staffed. It's, I'd say about 6 to 8 months probably at max where we've been fully staffed. And I laid out a lot of different considerations in my report, or my questionnaire and follow-up response. I'm not gonna beat those to death. It's probably not that interesting to read through, but there are many things that we're working through right now with the adjustments that we've had to make in our office that are requiring additional time to be spent on work. When I got into my office, there was an absolute mess of comp time on the books that people had accrued. I mean, it was astronomical. We cleaned that up. We imposed limitations on comp time that people can carry, and we do our best to police that, make sure that it's not getting out of hand. I will tell everyone that it's a regular occurrence that I am kicking people out of the office at 4 o'clock. You rarely see all the employees in my office filing out the door at 4 o'clock because they're up there working very hard to do what we need to do. I don't want to be in a position where we're blowing through the budget because we have trials that require overtime. As I stated in the report that I turned back in, most people probably don't realize that when there's a trial, that shuts down essentially a quarter to a third of our office for the time that we're preparing and having that trial, which is usually a week. That means all that other work has to be shifted around. Not to mention the trial preparation itself, it takes additional time. You've seen an increase in jury trials that's about twofold over the past 2 years. It is a major time requirement. I make that request, not expecting that I would need every bit of that funding that's requested. I would hope that there would be a excess balance remaining. But again, when I'm having to kick people out of the office and force them to leave because they're wanting to do their work, I would be making a full consideration of what we're dealing with. So,
I'm just curious, how many trials, Judge, year 2, how many trials are actually occurring? Because I get Carrie's notice for people to appear or not to appear, and I don't think I've seen an actual request for juries to show up probably since Carrie put that on her website or whatever your circuit clerk. I'm just kind of curious.
Four trials this year?
jury trials, and now we're not talking.
That's what I mean,
bench
jury
trials.
trials.
Preparation for a bench trial, as far as my office goes, is no different than preparation for a jury trial.
They have to prepare for the trials, and then sometimes there's a plea deal too. I mean, we took 4 of them up today to prison. So they prepare for those too.
Listen, I was just asking a question, because I'm curious whether we have one, obviously, Carrie's website, I haven't seen one since you put it into effect for jurors to.
So, let me clarify, so it was a year ago that you wrote the administrative order? March, an administrative order came down from the judges, who basically said, here's the amount of cases that are eligible for jury trials, and ordered my office on specific dates to send out notices to members of the community to show up, because the judges were calendaring cases for jury trial. What that means is that 150 summons basically to jury trial go out to the community on the day of trial. Either they make plea deals prior to that day, they put in motions to continue, which says to the judge, listen, we're not ready for this yet, and the judge grants it, which then pushes it to the next jury date, which is on my administrative order, or it goes to jury trial. We have had 4 jury trials since March, since that order came down, where we actively brought the people in, questioned them, put them in the jury box. Tyler and his team argued against to and fro about whether they're guilty, and a decision was made. Other times, it's either a result of a plea deal, a motion to continue, or they go to what they call a bench trial, which means the defendant says, I don't want 7 people to decide, I just want one guy. And they decide that a judge is gonna make the decision. That trial is similar in preparation in the fact that he still has to bring in all of the witnesses and prepare for the trial, but the burden is different.
I mean, but my question, Carrie, I'm not trying to stop you, my question more is that if they don't show up, they're not paid,
Who?
the jurors. If they-
Correct.
So that's what
Well,
my question was.
I think, well,
You send out the notice to appear as a juror.
yes, but
And then cancel.
they can come in, we've had several times, 2 or 3, I think, maybe 2. But don't quote me on that, I won't get in trouble. But I remember at least 1, but 2, where we actually brought the jurors in, paneled them, which means as soon as I enter them in the system, I'm legally bound to cut a check.
Yes.
So even if we don't go forward with the trial on that day, we've paid them to show up.
That's okay, I mean,
Yeah.
but I think you don't get my point. My point is that when you send the, it used to be you called to find out if you had to appear on Monday.
Mhm.
Now you're doing it online, and so that means there's been a plea bargain prior to Monday where we don't need the jurors to show up. That Monday.
Correct, but I think you need to keep in mind that, as long as we have the amount of cases that we do that need to be tried, I'm sending out those notices for
Yeah,
people
I'm
to
talking
show
about
up,
the work.
which is also a cost. I mean, you're paying 64 cents an envelope, plus all of the paper, ink,
No, I'll
and.
stop because it's obvious that I'm not getting my point across. My point is that if a juror, if we have a trial, we need jurors.
Yes,
But for whatever reason, a plea bargain or whatever else, you've still done the work, but we don't have to pay the
Correct.
$150
That's
for
true.
what it is for the jurors. So
Yeah.
that's my point, is a monetary side, is that,
yes,
Yeah,
you're not
that's
paying,
where
we're not
we
cutting a
lost.
check to them for their day's work. Yes, you're right.
And that's when they know ahead of time. But what I think Carrie was trying to say, and I know what's happened too, is that there's oftentimes that the plea deal is not accepted until the day that the trial is supposed to start, and then the jury is here, and you will pay the jury because they show up.
that's correct. But if you
And
put
that
on the
happens
website,
because
they don't need
the plea
to
deal is not
appear.
accepted till the day.
If though on our website, if you don't need to appear, we don't have to pay them.
Correct.
And so, but if they do show up for whatever reason, and then a plea deal's been agreed upon by the judge or whatever, we still have to pay them.
What, Tyler, you're saying that you've basically been staffed full-time for 6 months, give or take, whatever. How much overtime have we had to do in that 6 months?
I can't tell you, I don't know, I wish I had that information, but I don't have it with you.
About $8,000. This year. This year, his office has worked about $8,000 of overtime. But without,
Realize that's offset by the vacancies we've had, we're not paying out payroll for people, we had one position open for 90 days. Well, we're up on that with the legal assistant position now, we have one. So there's been offsets in the budget as far as payroll goes, regarding the overtime.
Well, and this may be a stupid remark to make, I don't know. You guys know more about it than I do. I know everything is getting focused around the new law and all that, but at this point, we don't know what the hell that's gonna mean. I guess.
We're learning day by day.
I mean,
Yeah.
how much it's gonna cost to do anything, if it's gonna cost anything. I mean, nobody knows. And I just find it hard to budget for that. Just putting money out there, thinking it might happen, which I realize we gotta do some of that, but if you understand what I'm saying.
Sure.
I mean, I just,
Well, I can tell you. mean,
I don't wanna base everything on this damn safety act, that's what
I
I'm saying.
understand.
I don't, that may be good, it may be bad, nobody the hell knows. I mean, I just, and I know that's where you guys, all of you from upstairs are coming from on your budgets. What are we gonna have to do? Well, hell, nobody knows.
Well, we put 60,000 aside last year, just in general, not in their budget for the Safety Act, and didn't have to touch it because it didn't affect it. And I guess the other thing I would say is like, the Safety Act went into effect, what, September 18th? So it's been 1 month. Carrie, how many cases have been filed in 1 month?
Since the inception of the Safety Act,
Yes.
1 moment, please. I think it's a total of 11 cases filed with, I think, 4 of them being criminal in nature.
So those will be cases that are subject to Safety Act retrial fairness. That's not every case, including traffic.
Yeah, we didn't have, that's criminal. I didn't include the traffic. Traffic is a separate entity because it doesn't qualify for, but there's been 4 for sure that qualify for Safety Act rules since September 18th.
Max, I think you make a good point because most of it's theory at this point. If the board is open to revisiting amendments to the budget next spring and summer, we don't know how this is gonna come out. There are a couple main concerns I have. One being, I believe people will start getting detained for violations, and then that triggers a 90-day speedy trial. If you do the timeline, 90 days from, basically 90 days from January, enough defendants are now going to be detained. You're looking at April, May, you could start a lot more jury trials. We don't know that. Also, there's over 100 pending appeals. And as of now, there's over 110 appeals in the 5th District Appellate Court on the Safety Act detention hearings.
There will be.
From everything to whether it was attainable, the speed, the resources allocated. The Supreme Court really didn't address any of those things. So,
Well, I don't think we have a choice other than, 6 months from now, this thing blows wide open, that we're gonna have to address it. Whether we budget for it or not.
I would like to, obviously, everybody wants money up front, but I think you're gonna spin your wheels and waste a lot of time chasing theory if you try to plan and budget for every contingency for the State Safety Act, as you sit here today.
You're gonna save money on your jail bill, but what's gonna be in June?
Yeah, I understand. I just was throwing that out there. I'm not arguing with you guys, but you know way more than I do.
I will say that as far as the projections go, for my requests, the things that are related to office staff, those are based off of things that we can see trends wise, because we had already, prior to September 18th, implemented procedures and processes in anticipation of the Safety Act, trying to get things running smoothly as we could before September 18th. Okay, so when I'm talking about this increased workload, I'm talking about the shortened timelines and the additional time that's put on the front end of the case. That is based off of quantifiable experience and things that we've seen in practice already, because we were trying to do those beforehand, so we weren't just starting on September 18th, not knowing what we were doing.
Well, I'm just trying to relate all this together here, and maybe that's not the proper way to do it, but in other words, we say yes for your full-time secretary. My dumb way of thinking is, well, that should cut down on some overtime. If people are
It's
having
not a
to
dumb
do,
way of thinking. That's,
other people are having to do stuff, stop and do stuff, or work longer, or whatever, because you don't have a full-time secretary. So that's what I'm coming from.
and I don't think that's off base at all. I agree with that,
All right.
possibility being out there.
I'm just asking, so I don't know.
Judge, Max is the chairman, but you have to go in a couple seconds. Do you have anything else? You want to throw in?
No, my main increases have to do with just your standard.
Do you have to leave before Tyler?
Yeah, because I have people in family court.
Tyler, can we skip to him? Do you have to
Yeah,
leave?
that's fine.
Okay, okay.
So I'll come back to yours, I'll highlight where we're at. So the first one that the judge has requested is the Illinois State Bar Association dues. I don't know what these are, what.
So Illinois State Bar Association is, it's really the best resource for lawyers for updated legal information. I think I attached, some of what they have a daily newsletter, which is the Eclipse, which, not only summarizes every case, or at least the most relevant cases the courts are pushing out, but there's, they handpick relevant legal articles from various bar journals, things that's going on. It's really, to me, been the best summary of information coming out real time on the changes in the law. Some of the benefits you get doesn't really apply to judges because like the continuing legal education doesn't really apply to us. But the legal resources and the daily information, Judge Edmonds and I are both still members of the Illinois State Bar Association. We've been paying those out of our own pocket. It would be greatly appreciated if you could find it in your heart to pick those up for us. Like I said, I think it's the best real-time information we're getting on legal updates. And as things come up, they give you that daily reminder of what's going on. If we didn't hear something or see something that was only picked up in the Chicago media regarding the court system, it pushes it in front of you on a daily basis. So that's my pitch on that.
Is this 700 for both of you?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. You guys have any questions on the dues? Okay, his next request, and this is probably the biggest request that he has,
Right.
is, I'm not gonna try to pronounce it, stenograph? How do you say it?
It's the license for her court reporting machine.
There you go. I don't know how to say it.
Stenographer's license.
So this is the additional court reporter that, if you remember, Angela Horn came in here and there was was it a grant or a program?
Program. So we've gotten, I don't know how, but we've gotten Kayla in that court services program where she's not only monitoring electronic recorders, she's also working towards her certified court reporter certification, and she has to have a license for her machine, and which is a one-time fee for that. And it's probably something, my understanding is it's something the county always picks up, except the county, I don't think we've had a new court reporter in Union County. Probably Angela was probably the last one that was actually a Union County person, because I think Kim transferred in from another county, so she already had her license. When Robin transferred in a year and a half ago, Robin already had her license. So Kayla, would be our court reporter, so it's our responsibility, or the county's responsibility, to pay for that initial licensing. The benefit of that program is there's an incredible shortage of court reporters right now. So we are, one, for the court system, Robin's eligible to retire, I think in two or 3 years. I don't know when she will retire. Union County comes out on the short end of the circuit for those resources. But now, since we're going to have our own certified court reporter, we will have someone in this building. It's also about a $45,000 job that we created. That's a permanent job that's not coming out of the local taxpayer dollars.
Is there any guarantee we have that if we pay for her license, that she's gonna stay here if the other one leaves?
To get in this program, she has to make a 2-year commitment after getting certified. Now, past that, no, but the idea is we have our own local person, because Kayla lives in Union County. Her family's here, the kids go to school here,
So is her training 2 years?
it's a 2-year program.
So she will be here for the full 2 years, and they won't send her to another county?
She may have to travel, all the court reporters travel to cover things for shortages, but no, she's gonna be based here for 2 years, and then a 2-year commitment after she's certified. So for the next 3.5 years, she's going to be in Union County. Angie won't move her. You never know what the next supervisor will do. But the idea is, no, we will have her as our Union County court reporter.
I meant like for the next 2 years, we're having her and Robin both
Yes.
going to be here?
Yes. And I know, this comes up with the judges a lot, which is the judicial secretary. And to me, the other benefit of making sure we protect our future and have a permanent court reporter here is they serve as our paralegal or as our administrative assistant, taking phone calls, making sure the computers are working, directing traffic, paying bills, directing traffic. They do a lot of administrative duties, and in a lot of counties, the county has to pay for a full-time judicial secretary. Us making sure we have a court reporter for the future helps us avoid me having to come in here and ask for a full-time secretary, because we have people not only able but willing to do those duties for us. Theoretically, they could say that's not our job, but that's how they've been trained. Is everybody pitches in a small county, and that's part of their job. So I know it's a big one-time expense, but
So what's gonna happen if we don't agree to pay that?
well, I will go back to Angie, and I suspect the answer is going to be that they'll tell me to issue an order me to pay for it. I don't know the answer to that question. That's never come up. That has never come up. And to be honest with you, the funding of some of these things, I don't necessarily agree with how the state does it, especially because they are trending towards passing more stuff to the county, and I'm not really a fan of it, but that's how they do it. If you want more questions or more clarity on that, I will get them for you, get more specific questions, because some of those things.
I just was curious,
You can do a resolution that they have to pay for it.
Yeah, we might order you.
And then you'll add that to your budget.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so the next item on his list is the circuit court jury increase. So this is the jury trials that they were talking about earlier, and Judge Denny has asked for in the budget to be increased by $4,000. I believe it's related to the Safety Act.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think you're getting cost per jury trial is more expensive because everything's getting more expensive. But then also, I would anticipate by the end of next year, I think you're going to be forced to do more jury trials.
Again, is that something that we can, and I'm just asking, not saying yea or nay. Down the road, if that's what happens, we can appropriate funds, or?
I think you can amend the budget anytime you want to.
Well, yeah, I know.
And that's something that can be done. At the end of the day, I can't tell people they can't come to jury trial because we didn't budget enough money for jury trials. So if we don't spend the money, we don't spend it. If we get to June and we need to make it a supplemental request, we make a supplemental request. I think you're thinking right.
I mean, you could spend more than that, I understand.
That's great. I think you're thinking right. I don't think there's anything wrong with the uncertainty with saying, we'll leave it flat, and if you need more next year, come and do a supplemental request. I think that's.
Which I had said earlier that we put aside money and didn't need it, but I mean, in this budget, the circuit jurors budget, we budgeted $6,000, but we moved in the budget amendment you guys just approved, we had to add $2,500 to it because they were over budget.
So we over budget on that
Yes,
this year.
we were over budget this year by $2,500. So, and we moved it with the budget amendment. So same thing, right now they have a $6,000 budget. I think you're both saying the same thing. We can put money, hold it like we did this and move it when we need it.
If I can make a comment on that too, realize we now have 2 jury trial dockets a month, okay? So that means there's the possibility, even the likelihood that we could have 2 trials a month, not 1. I think it is not just a Safety Act factor to consider for the increase, because we have been pushing very hard to get cases closed and disposed. Sometimes that means we have to have a trial. There's no other way around it. And that's aside from the Safety Act, factors that might cause an increase. So if you look at the number of the revolving cases on the docket that we've knocked off in the past 3 years, okay? In order to maintain that, we'll have to have trials. And, again, I don't think we can expect to have one a month. I think that, it's always a possibility to have one a month when you've got two dockets there. So, it's not just a Safety Act, projection as far as the jury trial increase goes. I think you can expect that budget's we're gonna blow through that old budget again, if it stays where it is.
And so I understand this, if we approve this additional $4,000 and we don't spend it, it'll be there for next year, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they was gonna,
We're not gonna move it to something else and spend that money on something
That's
else.
what I'm asking.
It's gonna be for jury trials.
yes.
Okay.
And then the next, item is an increase to the legal publications budget for transcript. You wanna speak on this, Judge, just that there's gonna be more transcripts?
Yeah, Robin clarified that under the Safety Act, if there's an actual appeal of the Safety Act, the state is supposed to pick up that cost of that transcript. Where we're really seeing an increase is, sometimes the attorneys, the one that you're paying for mostly is the public defender requesting transcripts. And so if the public defender requests a transcript of a hearing, of a preliminary hearing, or, then that's an increased cost, it's an additional cost. And there's nuances there, but, some of those things are offset if you, I think he's got an increase of his, grand jury budget. So if you do more grand juries, you have less preliminary hearings, you have less preliminary hearing scripts. But sometimes there's testimony in an early hearing and you need it to prepare for trial. And for there's hundreds of reasons why those go up and down over time. And the other one they did mention, and we don't control this, are shelter care hearings. So a shelter care hearing is when DCFS comes in and says, we want you to take the kids, and the state's attorney has to file a petition, and we have an emergency hearing. In many cases, the parents either aren't present because of the emergency nature, they have 40 hours to have that hearing. Either the parents aren't present or the parents are present and their attorneys aren't there because they don't have attorneys at the initial hearing. So when we appoint an attorney, the attorney needs to know what was said at that initial hearing, and it requires the production of that transcript. And so that's one of those nuances that you just don't know how many of those are gonna go. A year, they're not gonna go down for.
When you said that if there's an appeal for the Safety Act, the state is supposed to pay for it, are you talking about Tyler as the state or the state of Illinois?
State of Illinois.
Okay.
No, so the state of Illinois in the Safety Act has that they're picking up the tab for the production of the official transcripts.
Okay.
So that side of it won't increase your costs.
In other words, we can throw that into the kind of pool that if we needed.
Yeah.
All right, and then the next request actually that came from Judge Denny brought it up, but I made a note here that this expense will actually go under the sheriff's department if it is approved, is for additional hours for court security. So this amount is 8 additional hours a week at $16 an hour.
That's basically projecting two things. When we do more detention hearings, there's more shuffling around inmates and that kind of stuff with the Safety Act. But also we've been scheduling extra, Norma's been scheduling extra staff for juvenile days. So with Judge Edmonds, if he has 30 or 40 juvenile cases, there's a lot of people shuffling in and out of those courtrooms. And it creates a little bit of a conundrum to have the judge on the bench, but then the bailiff needs to go out and get people, because at any given time, there's a dozen different case workers and partners from DCFS there, and then you have parents, grandparents, and there's just a lot of moving parts. So an extra bailiff has actually really assisted in moving those cases along a little faster, and it's always a very tense time when you're dealing with the juvenile cases. So it's in my opinion better for everybody's safety. So yeah, and we are running 2 courtrooms more frequently than we have in years past.
Any questions on that? That's all, Judge Denny's. I'm gonna move back to Tyler's.
Yep.
Tyler's only got a couple more too. Tyler, the state's attorney's office has asked for the grand jury to be increased. Tyler, I couldn't find in your answers where there was ever an amount.
Well, I think that might be some confusion. I don't know if we need to have an increase. I think
Okay,
maybe I was referencing jury trial, and you were thinking I was talking about grand jury, but I think we're good on grand jury budget right
Perfect.
now. Well,
Done.
we've not been able to call grand jury more times than I'd like to, but I think we're fine on grand jury budget.
okay. So then the lead subscription, so I'm not gonna be able to explain this, so it's leads is the program that the sheriff's office uses, and the state's attorney's office is wanting a subscription to it, but they don't have an amount for it.
So my understanding, I talked with David Long downstairs yesterday, he's kind of in the know on those things. He said to be safe to request $5,000. And I want to explain why we're making that request. There have been leaps and bounds of progress made between our office and the sheriff's office in efficiency and communication and exchange of information. We're still working towards a goal of reducing that a great deal. This is a piece of that plan here, because anytime we need criminal history, that's anytime someone is charged with a criminal offense, we have to have criminal history. We have to have criminal history for any witnesses that go to trial, for trial. We have to send a request sometimes, used to it was always, a request had to be sent to the sheriff to get a criminal history grant. That puts in the motion 2 to 3 people corresponding, sending emails back and forth, downloading, uploading, scanning, sending criminal histories, okay? Increases time, okay? When you have five or so cases you're working and you add that on top of everyone, it's an increase in time and effort that could be avoided if we have this program installed in our office. It's something that I believe would qualify for ARPA funding, if that is a consideration. I understand other state's attorney's offices have secured prosecutor software, law enforcement related software, which would and did qualify for funding under ARPA as well. I don't think that it will be 5,000. I think it will probably be a little bit less than that, but I was told to put that in there to be safe. We're still working through the details of exactly what the most cost-efficient way would be to structure that, set it up in my office, work with the sheriff's office too. But this, if it is installed in our office, would be an ease-on workload for Heidi downstairs and the other people in dispatch that we harass multiple times a day, requesting criminal histories. All of them would require to be for one of my assistants to get in there, run it, and put it in the pot, rather than having 3 people involved in that process.
And Sheriff, you're good with him having a subscription to lead? Yes.
It runs us 4,200 a year.
4,200, was it your payment?
Yeah, 42.8.
And is yours based off of number of people, or is it, so his was how you get it?
Yeah.
Any questions on that? And they get an increase. You probably will. I know, but I'm like,
You know how that goes?
it's like 5% to do this. Everything's gonna go up by like 20%. Then the next, 2 requests that came due on, Tyler, similar to, some other request, like this first one is a request to the jury increase. He just mentioned it in his, but it's actually already down here in Judge Denny's request. So it's, did you want to talk about it, Tyler?
I think we just about beat it to death.
All right,
I
good.
want to make sure I highlight it.
Then I'm deleting it from yours.
It is something that's real and needs to be,
And then the other thing that was in Tyler's request, but it's actually a public defender expense, would be to increase the legal counsel budget for mental evaluations. Have at it.
Okay, so we've seen a serious increase in the frequency of the public defender, defense attorneys also requesting someone to be assessed for fitness to stand trial. What you need to understand about that is that's typically always granted when that's requested. If there's any kind of a question about the defendant's ability to effectively participate with their attorney because they have a mental issue, now, let's use finger quotes of what a mental issue is. That's typically granted because it's an appealable, reversible error if that person's forced to proceed through trial or take a plea when there's a question of mental capacity. So there's very little argument against or objection to having someone assessed for fitness if the defense attorney make that. Now, in my experience, having been on the defense side previously, I've seen defendants try to play that as a game chip, okay? I'm unfit, I can't go to trial, you can't convict me, okay? That happens. However, there's only going to be an error on the side of caution if that issue is raised and if the defense does request that. The court's typically always going to grant it. The thing that we've seen is that more often than not, the requests are in cases where someone has a drug case. They have a drug addiction issue. They have a co-existing mental health issue with a drug dependency issue that's impacting their fitness. Some people can't even speak when they come into court, right? Now, which came first, which is who knows as far as mental illness versus their drug issue. But regardless, if there is a fitness question, that's typically always granted. I don't know what the increase is over the last year it was increased last year as well. There was an uptick in the frequency. I think it's more so this year. And again, projecting, but given the new no cash bail requirements and the fact that we're not able to at times keep people in jail or protect the public and maybe even themselves while they sober out, they're thrown back out to the streets, to the drugs, to whatever else they're doing. They throw gas on this fire of mental health issues and fitness. They come in, they want to be evaluated, they want to be assessed. I think those are costing $1,700 a pop right now, if I remember right. That's as high as they've ever been. I can remember when they were $600. That was 5 or 6 years ago. But that's something, even though it's not my line item, I'm always trying to consider everything for all of us that are, working through the same pile of things here. And I think that's definitely something that should be considered.
So they're averaging, that's what I'm pulling up here on the screen for you. This is the company we normally use for them. So far this year, we've had 18 fitness evaluations. And we may have had more if another company doesn't, but I'm pretty sure Juul's the only one that doesn't. So that would be 18 evaluations, and they're, like one's $1,675, one's $1,900. So they're in between about $1,600 and $2,000 a piece for an evaluation, and so far we've had 18. They're expensive.
And that's not necessarily even factoring in the cost of having that doctor stand in court and testify if we're going to fight about that. There's another cost on top.
So how much did we appropriate last year?
So see, this is actually, I'm gonna switch over here. So
It's under public defenders, but we don't have any.
It's actually a public defender expense. It's in this line item, but it's actually under the court. So the stack of bills that you guys approved today, the additional ones where we have to have a third-party public defender come in, this is actually coded to the same line as that. So whether we pay for a third-party public defender or we pay to have a fitness evaluation, it all goes under legal counsel, which is in the court's budget. So last year, we increased it by 16.8, I think we increased it. So, but again, the budget after the increase, no, this year we increased it by 16.8, but even after that, it's still not going to be enough.
So what was the total for this year that we?
So far this year, you paid $140,000 for public defenders and fitness evaluations.
But how much did we appropriate?
Sorry, I'm not right. That's my projection of what you're going to spend. So far, you've spent $116.8. That's what you've actually spent, and I projected it out for the next 2 months to come in at $140, $160, if it keeps along the same. So
How much did we estimate though?
for budget, $100,000. So So it's already 40,000 over budget,
The 40,000 is projected on the year.
the projected number. Right now, you are $16,800 over budget. Plus another 5,800 that you approved today. So,
Assuming the cost, the cost of the evaluations from that company go up every year too, don't they? Per evaluation.
oh yes, it's gone up. If I even go back to this and show you like, this is the same vendor, this is just this year. Well, you can't really tell because maybe this is for two people, so, and I don't wanna click on it because I don't want the names to come
Yeah.
up. So,
Well, it's a little hard to figure anything since the public defender didn't give us any information.
I didn't get a single request or answer from the public defender's office.
We just have to.
It's hard to project anything if we don't, if it goes up 10% a year.
So it's there, but yeah, we don't have it anymore. So that's all of the requests out of the state's attorney's office. We did the court, so I'm gonna skip over that. And then the other court-related department would be the circuit clerk's office. So the first item requested under the circuit clerk's office is overtime. Again, most just, the request came in at $8,800, basically comparable to the request for overtime in the state's attorney's office. I think Carrie based her number, off the fact that they've already had $8,000 worth of, overtime up there. And now her office is, working through lunch, staying late for court. What am I missing, Carrie?
Okay, so for overtime, you've not seen that traditionally in the past in my office. But what we're seeing is that we're spending more time through lunch hours. So my staff works through 12 o'clock. And as you know, we're down.
Can I ask a dumb question? Is that legal?
Well, it's legal, but it's not legal within the confines of their union contract.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. So, but according to the Supreme Court, my office is required to be in the courtroom during legal procedures. So it's kind of a conundrum because I have to work with 5 people. So when I have to have 2 courtrooms running at a time, and so I've allocated resources to that. I have 2 people in my office and myself. And if anybody's out or if I have to send people to lunch, it creates a scheduling issue. But regardless of all that, they stay through lunch and then we've been going past 5. So they're past 4, which is also our end time. So I'm spending a lot of money in overtime for going through lunch and working out.
I can see it going past 4, but I don't get not stopping for lunch.
Yeah, that's outside of my ability to stop. That's a judge issue. So a lot of times, I'll be honest, and to be frank, a lot of times what happens is we start court at 9. My staff arrives at 9 when the judge comes to the courtroom. And people aren't ready.
Do you want me to say it?
No, I'll say it. People just aren't prepared for court. So we don't start at 9. So if we have a 9 o'clock docket that has 15 people on it, and we don't start at 9, the 9 o'clock 15 people may not start till 11. Well, you also have an 11 o'clock docket. So now you have a room full of people that are waiting to be seen, and we might have a jail list. So like, let's say the jail list isn't on the docket. So we might have 3 people sitting in the back who they brought in, the sheriff brought in at 7 o'clock in the morning. They're supposed to go first. Well, when they get here, nobody's ready to go. So we sit. So what happens is the judges are like, well, I have an afternoon docket that starts at 1. So they move my team through lunch and then we go right into 1.
I
And then
get
we go
all
past
that.
4.
I understand all that and I know where you're coming from and I get that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, pertaining to a union contract, they get an hour for lunch.
Well, I give them an hour. I do give them an hour for lunch. They get an hour for lunch if I have,
Are
if
we
it's a
paying them
perfect
over?
situation, right?
Are we
Like
paying them overtime for lunch?
So this is how it works. Sometimes I can't give them an hour
because I have a full court in the afternoon.
Well, I
Does that
don't
make
think
sense?
I don't think it's you.
Yeah.
It's the court.
Yeah, and it's up to, I can't control that, so I have to pay them. If they go past their, is it 7.5 hours in?
For what, they were 7 hours.
7 hours. If they go past that, I have to pay them. So if they come back, I might give somebody a half-hour lunch, not an hour lunch that day, because I have to get that person back in court at 1. You know, so
She's paying that time and a half comp.
yeah, like I have to allocate a resource to the courts and my office.
I'm just making a point. I
I
don't like
understand.
it. I don't like it.
I don't like it either, I don't
That
want
should not
to.
be happening. I don't care how backed up the court is. I don't care if you start at 11:30. You break at 12 for an hour for lunch. For the employees that are getting paid an hourly wage by their union contract.
I don't disagree with you. It's just out of the circuit
I'm
court's
just
control.
stating this so it's on the record.
I
don't
appreciate
like
that. Yes. So what I chose is I reached out to Angie and Angela and asked what are the overtime hours being used in the state's attorney's office this year, because I wrote in my email response, it's very difficult for me to tell you how much it's gonna cost me in overtime, because I don't know I can't make the decisions for the people that run the courts.
But this is based on working through lunch and
What I'm seeing this
after
year-
4.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I at least have 1 to 2 employees each week, either working through lunch or after 4 o'clock.
I want to say the same thing. I want it on record that I don't like at all this even, you know, I mean, it's one thing and you're the HR, but, you know, to eat between the 11 o'clock lunch hour or 1 o'clock, I can, you know, that's unfortunate that they don't necessarily have a perfect schedule for when they eat, but they all have somewhere between 11 and 1 get.
Well, the Supreme Court rules state that my office, or I'm sorry, the local rule states that my office, based on population, has to close between 12 and 1, which is why it's always been from 12 to 1, because we have to by statute close at 12 to 1, but unfortunately, my office may be closed to the public, but my staff is working. So I then have to try to find a way to give them time to eat. And sometimes sometimes they eat at the desk. We're doing a lot of pizza from Casey's, let's just put it that way.
Okay, good. I mean, I'm glad.
I'm buying a lot of Casey's pizza, and no, the taxpayer's not paying.
Well, I'm just, and this is an impromptu statement, but sooner or later, you're gonna have an employee and the union's gonna file a grievance. So who's gonna pay that? I'm just saying.
I can appreciate all the words just they're coming out of your mouth. I just don't know how to control it, because it's not
Unfortunately, the judge has already left.
my,
What's the reasoning starting court at 9 when nobody's prepared?
Because if they started 10:45, they still wouldn't be prepared.
An attorney thing.
It's the attorney issue.
I mean, that's the truth of the matter. That's why I've urged you guys to go up to the courtrooms and watch sometime, because what you will see is court starts, they call a case, the public defender has not even talked to their client. He has to go to the bar and talk to his client, which takes an hour, so then he comes back, and then the state's attorney's office doesn't have the paperwork prepared that they're supposed to, so then they have to push it back, and this is every day in court. Our court system is messed up. I'm gonna say it, I wish the state's attorney was still here, and I wish the judge was still here. Eventually, the court system is gonna be the downfall of this county if it doesn't get fixed.
All counties.
Everything. The revenue is coming down, and we're not prepared for court. The expenses are increasing, cases are getting continued. Go look at dockets and see how many times a case gets continued, because either the public defender or the state's attorney are not ready, one or the other, and they get continued. When we pay for the third-party legal bills, they get continued. So if you look at those bills, it's came to court, came to court, came to court, over and over and over again, because they're not ready. Go to court and watch.
I can only imagine the aggravation from the general public.
Well, look what it does to our jail bill. I mean, people that are in jail, we're just paying for them to stay there for months on end before they ever get a court date, before they actually do anything.
It's probably a little better in the jail time because they, you because of safety actions.
Well, not yet. I mean, we gotta make the people that are in there worse.
Yes, absolutely.
How many we got in jail now? You got a head count?
I think what, 29?
Oh,
We
so
said that I, 24. Well, we sent 4 yesterday.
Can you prepare something for us to show, not names, but how long?
People have been in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's on my bill every month.
Okay, I'd like
It
to
shows
have
exactly
that.
how long they've.
Actually, I believe you can get the names too. I mean, I think
I
the
just
jail
don't-
bill's foiled.
Yeah,
I
so-
just don't want that.
I just gave it to Angie yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want that.
Let's not get off this half of the way subject here, let's
Okay.
keep going.
So that's the overtime. So then the second request for the circuit clerk, and Carrie, I'm gonna let you lead with this, but this is the copiers for her office. I believe she currently has a grant that paid for them this year, but she doesn't know if she's gonna have the grant next year, or you don't have it or
Yeah,
something.
so, this is a great opportunity for me to toot my own horn. Before you guys make decisions, let me toot my own horn. So during, my tenure, we've had major accomplishments. Most important of which, in my opinion, are we've received 2 technology grants in excess of $200,000. Within those grants, I've been able to purchase, a server, we've paid to set it up. We've purchased all of our computers. We purchased all of our scanning devices. All the software that goes with it has been paid for through the technology grants. In addition to that, I've written for 2 years, both years that I've been in office, for a self-represented litigant grant. That grant has also offset the cost of office supplies, paper, toner, hold on, let me take my glasses off. A third of our copier contract, so when we got new copy machines, they hadn't updated the copier machines in my office, I think, for 20. So they weren't even working. Office supplies, and we've also brought in a Justice Corps volunteer, which is a lawyer who comes into my office twice a month to help my team work with people in the community who need help with court cases, which has been awesome. So we have over 1,346 cases currently active in our county. 33% of those, 22% of those are not related to upstairs. So those are civil issues that are evictions, things like that, family cases that are strictly run by my office. Okay, so 22% of my workload is done by the 5 people in my office. The rest is dependent upon the people upstairs as far as court cases are concerned. So having that gentleman come in helps my team be able to facilitate helping out 22% of the court cases that come through the county. And we did our scanning project. The scanning project, and this is important for overtime, we were able to stay under budget on scanning, which left me with some overage, some money that I could spend. So what I did is I brought some of those books that we have, I didn't outsource them, I kept them in. So I'm utilizing that money to pay my team overtime. So basically putting it back into our community rather than putting it into the community of Rantoul. And so we're able to do a lot of work, checking and balancing and overtime on our scanning project that's also been done. So the copier lease and even the server support basically are dependent on 2 factors. One is me continuing to receive the SRL grant, which I have again this year and I anticipate having again, would be the copier lease. And the second one is the server support mayor network, which I just gonna foray into that. Is that fine? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna segue into it. The reason I put that on there is because, as we've talked about, when the judicial system isn't operating efficiently and effectively, it negatively impacts our bottom line. My bottom line are all of those accounts that you guys tell me I can spend money on. Court automation, doc storage. You guys save me every year, Carrie. You receive income from court cases, and therefore you can spend whatever money you have in those any way you want, which we appreciate. In the past, under last administration, they used that for employees, which is why my fight with you, my fight was, please pay for my people, because it's killing me on the doc storage and court automation. I'm paying for that mayor network's $25,000 out of court automation right now, which is what it's designed for, right? It's designed for us to take the money that we receive from fines and fees and pay for what we need it for, infrastructure, which is what that's for. What we're finding is, as a result of several factors, operationally from the courts and some of what we perceive as implications from the Safety Act, we're going to see a marked decrease in the amount of money that is funneled into those accounts, which are paying for things like server maintenance. I'm not seeing that right now, frankly, as far as like a major decrease in those funds. However, why I put it on for this year is I think it's something you need to be aware that I'm not the only one who's expending money out of accounts that the earned income comes from fines and fees that are put in orders through court cases. So we just talked about the jail bill, for instance. If a person sits in jail for what, 190 days, help me out back here, Heidi, an average, somebody sits in jail.
$56 a day, so 190 times, what is your math?
Yep.
766.
So when they come to court and a decision is made, and a guy's been sitting in court or in jail for 160 days, when they go and say, hey buddy, you're guilty and you owe us $2,000. The judge says, in the deal, they might say, well, I get credit for time served. Well, if you've been sitting in jail for 160 days at $52 a day, you may get no money from that person. So, because he got credit for time served. So his bill becomes zero because he got all that money allocated to him because he sat in jail for 160 days. When that happens, I don't get a percentage of the money owed, which goes into those accounts to pay for a server, for copying machines. So, I mean, I can pay it this year, but I want you to know that unless we get a handle on how we adjudicate, I'm not going to be the only office walking into you asking to pay for this.
Refresh my memory if I'm wrong, was the server, wasn't that bought through a grant?
Yes, it was. The server was purchased through the grant, which I think that's important to note too. As a result of the Supreme Court and our current administration, there's been constant changes made to what is required of the courts with regards to how people can interact with us. And it means a lot of changes to technology. We were really lucky in this courthouse that we have a judiciary. Our judges were really like, do it, Carrie. I asked, they said, do it. And so I was able to apply for things to put us in what I call legacy decisions. Like we could create an infrastructure that is going to stand the test of time. Regardless of what's asked of us by the Supreme Court, we now have the infrastructure in place that it won't cost you $100,000 in 3 years.
My question for that, there's nothing in the grant or another grant or anything to pay for the support?
Well, there's some rumblings that there might be another technology grant coming out in the next fiscal, but the state's fiscal started in July. So I'm not sure about that because I haven't seen anything. They're saying they are, it's Springfield. But as long as they're there to ask for, I'm gonna be asking for them. But yes, my server was paid for, the installation of it, and actually the first few months of maintenance of the server has been paid for by grant. And then after that, we started to pull from my other funds.
If that grant does come through, it's kind of stupid, but if the grant does come through, you will kind of reimburse the county.
Well, I don't know if I can reimburse.
I said that, I don't know how to.
Yeah, usually with grants, you don't reimburse for past costs, but what it would do is be going forward. So I would write for what I write now, like for instance, the app that you referred to earlier that I use for the jury, like that I paid for with a grant, and they paid the first couple of years of it. And if I get the grant again, I'm gonna ask them to pay another 2 years for it, You just sort of start pulling from court auto to, right now I'm pulling from those accounts so I can pay for what I don't have with hopes that I can just write grant. I do a lot of research on grants, so if I find a grant that I can write for, I'll get them to pay for whatever won't hit my court audit and tax storage. But those accounts are completely funded by fines and fees. Allocated by.
I know this is hard to see up here. I unhid some lines because I keep all the past stuff. But this kind of just shows you, like, if you go all the way back to 2016,
the fines and fees were like 77,000, 85,000, 71,000, 60,000. We dropped down to 40, we dropped down to 32, we dropped down to 31, we dropped down to 30. They're just going down, and that's what she's saying. So if you look right here, this year, I'm projecting for next year that she will bring in 30,000. Her expenses that has the mayor bill in there and the copier and all that she's at 26,000. So right now, she has enough fees at 30,000 coming in to pay 26, but we see that it just keeps going down. So what she's trying to say is eventually that's gonna drop below 25,000 and she's not going to be able to pay for this bill if she doesn't have a grant.
I get it.
So Carrie, you kind of skipped it and did both of yours, so.
I'm sorry.
You good? Is
Yeah.
there anything else you wanted to say? Are you good?
Yeah, good.
Let's,
You need a break?
take a bathroom break, get up for a minute, is that all right with everybody?
Probably comfort break.
5 minutes.
Taking a comfort break.
Just don't forget to come back.
All these years.